What's going on, volleyball family? Kyle here from Does Kyle Dig It, the volleyball focused shoe review channel where we take signature and performance basketball shoes and review them for the sport of volleyball. As always, I'm your host Kyle, both a volleyball coach and a volleyball player with an unhealthy shoe obsession. Now today, we've got a little bit of an expensive treat for you, but I think these are pretty cool. Today, we're going to be talking about the Nike GT Cut 3 Turbos. As always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe and drop down in the comments section. Let me know what you think about the Nike GT Cut 3 Turbos. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the breakdown. As always, let's go ahead and start with the traction performance. But before we actually talk about the traction performance, I think there's a bigger issue that's kind of clouding over these shoes, and that is the price tag. These shoes retail for $210, which is actually not even a insignificant jump up from the actual regular GT Cut 3 versions that already retailed for a whopping $190. An extra $20 for the changes that they've made to these shoes. I don't think that it is actually fully worth the price tag, but before we actually kind of get into those spoilers at the end of the video, I just wanted to make sure that we are all on the same page that these shoes cost a good chunk of money, and I don't know if the tech upgrade from the original versions to this version actually warrants the new even higher price tag. But like I said, let's go ahead, we'll start with the traction pattern. Now, this is kind of like a zigzagging herringbone pattern that runs across the entire bottom of the shoe in a front and a forward back pod. Really great stuff. Deep traction pattern, cuts through dust, awesome performance on pretty much any surface, even on the sport court surface. Didn't have any issues with the traction, real hard stop, and nice high pitched squeak. If you're into that thing, even though it has nothing to do with performance. So that herringbone pattern in the two different pods really helps with a very hard stop, even on dusty courts. If you're playing on a really dusty court, it is going to pick up a little bit of dust, but because those grooves on that kind of zigzagging herringbone pattern, they run so deep, the dust pickup wasn't bad for me at all, and it makes it a really easy clean wipe because there's that nice space in between all the grooves. So you shouldn't have any issues on dusty or clean courts, or even on really dusty sport courts at some typical events and everything. These shoes are going to bite through that dust no problem. Now, as we go ahead and we start making our way up the shoe, let's go ahead and get into that cushioning setup. Now, the cushioning setup on this particular model is a full Zoom X foam unit that you can see actually exposed here in the heel. Actually really nice compression in the heel on these. It's got a lot of actual heel compression in there, gives you that really nice step in comfort, good cushioning on that heel to toe transition as you come through the shoe. Now, we've got Zoom X on Zoom X cushion is the way that these shoes are kind of billed with the way that they come in box. And that's because you've got full Zoom X foam, that's the actual cushioning pattern of the shoe, but then the actual insole that they give you standard with these shoes is actually a thin Zoom X insole unit that they put into the shoe that has its own little groove patterns to it. It is glued down, so it's a little hard to remove. So if you're not using any type of custom insoles, I wouldn't recommend removing the Zoom X insole unit from the shoes when you get them, because it actually is a nice quality material and it lends to a little bit of extra step and comfort in the shoe if you're not using some type of performance or orthotic type of insert into your shoe. Now, that being said, even if you do take that insole unit out and you do put something else in, that full Zoom X unit that's running through here is still going to give you maximum cushioning support. It all kind of comes up on top of a nice foam strobe board. And I will say, step and comfort, really nice in these shoes. Maximum cushioning is exactly what I would expect out of something like this. With the extra insole being added to these that does not come with the standard model, I guess that is where a little bit of the extra price tag on the new model comes over the original model, because you do get that Zoom X insole that comes in it. Though, like I normally say with all kind of standard insoles that comes in these shoes, yank them out, put something that's actually going to be healthy for your feet, not something that is just, something the company puts in there, because most of the time the insoles, even if they are Zoom X from Nike, probably not actually going to do much for your foot in terms of injury prevention and actually performance. All right, now wrapping up the cushioning support, the one caveat to the cushioning on these shoes is that because that ZoomX unit is so thick and very plush and cushiony, there wasn't a whole lot of court feel on these shoes, or at least it was very diminished. I felt like I was slightly sitting up in the heel of these shoes just because of how much they actually give you in terms of that ZoomX cushioning. That being said, though, when it comes to your actual heel to toe transition, the heel of this shoe is just perfectly rounded and the toe sits up nicely, so you get excellent heel to toe transition across the shoe as you're making those big heel dominant strides. And of course, just like the original model, this also has that nice carbon fiber plate, but I will tell you what, this thing is stiff. It makes you want to bounce. So when you are doing those heel to toe transitions, yes, you do feel like you're sitting up in the heel a little bit and you have that diminished court feel, but what this shoe does want to do is it wants to propel you forward, because all of that carbon fiber plate and all that torsional support plus extra bounce in the toe here, it just wants to spring you forward off of the ground. Really, really great for jumping. These shoes would be awesome for any type of hitting position. You've got really great cushioning support, awesome traction, and then of course you've got that nice carbon fiber plate with a shoe that just wants to send you up in the air. Awesome stuff there. Really like the cushioning and the bounce setup of these shoes. So to wrap up our traction and then our cushioning setup, these are going to be a 10 out of 10 on both categories. I wouldn't expect anything less from the most expensive, or at least one of the most expensive offerings from Nike right now, as kind of their signature basketball model that's not attached to any player currently. The traction and the cushioning support is top notch. Really, really great stuff. Only thing is you have a little bit of a diminished court feel on the shoe as you go and you're starting to actually make those big heel dominant strides. But you do get propelled. You do feel very springy. It's a really, really fun shoe to play in. Now, that'll wrap up our cushioning, our traction. Let's go ahead and make our way on up the shoe. Let's talk about some of the materials and then that support and lockdown. Now, they definitely did change up the outer materials on this shoe compared to the original offering. And it does feel really premium, the materials that they used. It feels really, really good, really high quality stuff. Fake carbon fiber on the toe here. Doesn't really, it lends more to the aesthetics, but at least overall, the shoe feels like it was designed and a lot of really care and effort was put into the materials that they decided to use for the new upper on the turbo model. Now, this material here, it's actually pretty sturdy and took a little bit of a break-in period. Now, the sidewalls here, they didn't break in quite as much, which kept the nice lateral stability intact for the shoe. But here in the toe box, this material, you can see it flexes really well. We've got kind of like almost like a suede material in the middle here, and then there's this synthetic leather, whatever the material this is, running up the lateral sides. This broke in enough that I felt really nice in the toe box, and it stretched out enough for me because Nike shoes are kind of notorious for running a little bit narrow. So it was nice that that material broke in, gave me a little bit extra room in the toe box. So like I said, really, really great materials across the shoe. And as you come up on the sides, that still continues, which lends for really, really great lateral stability. The actual side of the shoe wall comes out real nicely here with full rubber running up the sides, which gives you those nice lateral movements. And then as you come in on the medial side here, you've got that full ZoomX foam, and then that material that runs all the way up the side. Felt really, really secure, nice and locked down in this shoe. It was easy to put on, and it didn't feel like it was coming off my feet, except for one small thing that we'll get to here in just a second. Now we've got nice little kind of almost like a rubber TPU heel counter here that comes down onto that foam, locks in really nicely. One downside to this shoe is that around your ankle support, the heel here, and then the tongue, there's not a lot of padding there. It didn't feel necessarily uncomfortable, but I would have liked a little bit more padding and a little bit more cushioning for that step-in comfort, especially since that ZoomX foam feels so great on your actual underfoot cushion. It would be nice to have a little bit of extra cushion around that ankle and on that tongue support. And as we talk about the tongue, this is where I kind of have like my biggest issue with the shoe. These laces that they used, they're very, very thin on these particular models. And when you lace them down, they don't want to like lock in completely, which left me sometimes feeling like I struggled to actually get the shoe laced down enough that I felt like my ankle was truly locked in. Now, once I did get there, it felt great and the shoe performed excellent. It just was a little bit of a hassle. I may actually try to switch these laces out with something maybe a little bit more round, maybe something a little bit more thick. I think that that could potentially help with those issues on this shoe. And if I can do that and make it work, maybe I'll do a little follow-up short video letting you all know that that was something that kind of made these a perfect shoe for me overall once I fixed the issue with that lacing lockdown and the ankle support, because there's not a lot of cushioning up here. Now, as we go ahead and we wrap up the lockdown and support of this shoe, like I said, everything felt really good once I got them fully laced down on my foot and I had them secured. It just took me a little bit to get there. That combined with the very minimal padding that we have on the ankle support and the heel plus the tongue here, I would say the lockdown and support for this shoe is actually more of like an 8.5 out of 10. Once I get the laces in and I fix that issue, that number might improve. But as it stands, that's like kind of the one downside to this shoe is just a little bit of that lockdown and support. I wish I had more cushioning comfort. I wish that the laces felt a little bit more comfortable, and I wish this tongue had a little bit more padding. That being said, though, still an awesome shoe, especially with that traction performance and that cushioning support. Really, really good stuff from Nike there. Now, let's go ahead and wrap up everything here and talk about the weight of this shoe. Now, average weight of my shoes is about 12.5 ounces. These bad boys right here came in under that at around 11.7 ounces. So close to average, but definitely coming a little bit underneath that, which is good because they did feel light on foot. I didn't feel heavy or clunky in these shoes. So that was definitely a good thing. The 11.5 ounces, 11.7 ounces, nice and good, felt good on foot. Now, that will go ahead and wrap up the Nike GT Cut 3 Turbo. In summary, traction, cushioning, 10 out of 10. Can't really get too much better than this outside of, your Way of Wade categories or your other premium options from other companies. But lockdown and support, like I said, the laces and the comfort makes it more an 8.5 out of 10. Overall, solid 9 out of 10 shoe. The problem is that for $210, a 9 out of 10 is just kind of not quite cutting it. I really do love this shoe. It's clear that Nike put a lot of R&D into the performance factors that go into this shoe. It feels great on foot, if just maybe a little bit warm because there's not a lot of ventilation in here. But it really is a great shoe and a top tier performer. But that price tag is a little bit insane, especially when you consider that the previous model from this shoe, the regular Nike GT Cut 3, you can find those right now on sale at places like Ross for as low as like $60, $80 in some cases. I've seen things online where you can find those shoes very cheap. With the minimal performance benefits that you get from that shoe to the new Turbo model, it doesn't justify the price tag. Now, I wanted these specifically because these were part of the Black Label special collection that Nike released, and it was the new GT Cut 3 Turbo, so I wanted to make sure that I got my hands on it. But if I was just an average consumer, I definitely don't think that dropping money on something like this is actually worth it when you can get the predecessor that performs 95% the same as this shoe for such a discounted rate depending on where you go. Now, that being said, that'll wrap up the Nike GT Cut 3 Turbo. At the end of the day, Kyle does dig this shoe. I just wish that it didn't have the giant price tag associated with it. But let me know what you think about the Nike GT Cut 3 Turbo down in the comments below. And again, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. As always, this has been Coach Kyle signing off from Does Kyle Dig It?